Hi, my name is Jordan Rudess. Welcome to my video. I've been playing the keyboard since I was 7 years old. I started out playing a lot of classical music and discovered the synthesizer along the path when I was about 17 or 18. And during this video, I'm going to be taking you through some different techniques that I've developed along the way. They include compositional techniques, improvisational techniques, rhythmic, and also just technical skills with the keyboard. I've had the opportunity to play with a lot of very good musicians. Most recently, the bands I've been in are the Liquid Tension Experiment and my own Rudess Morgenstein project. But I've also played with groups like the Dixie Dregs and the Paul Winter Consort. I'd like to share with you some of these ideas that I've developed over the next period of time. Let's go.
I'd like to introduce you to some of the ways that I think about playing leads and playing melodies. The groove that we were just hearing is what I call like a Dregsy groove. And I learned a lot when I joined the Dregs, in the sense that there's a lot of places in the music where there are these 8 or 16 bar phrases where it's time for somebody to take a lead. And if something is cooking and it stays in one key for a while, like it stays in the key of D, like this jam we were just listening to, what are you going to do over that many measures? Well, for one thing, it's really important for any player, whether they're playing the guitar, or whether they're playing the keyboard or any other instrument, to know the blues scales, because the blues scales are really the key to playing any kind of, well, rock or jazz or pop music. A lot of times the blues scale is used by itself or in addition to other kinds of modes that might be mixed in. So let me tell you the way that I'm thinking about what I just did. For one thing, of course, the blues scale is the basic structure of what it is, the D blues scale. Okay, for those of you who don't know what a blues scale is comprised of, basically it's the root, the minor third, the fourth, the flatted fifth, the fifth, the seventh, and again the root. So, now what makes it sound kind of cool on a keyboard like this, or an instrument where you can bend, like a guitar or a wind instrument, is to actually bend some of the notes. And that's where my pitch wheel and my ribbon comes into play. Like bending from the fourth to the fifth is a good sound, or even playing around with that flatted fifth from the fourth, like. It's just a way of achieving tension as you go to the actual fifth. So you can either go to the flatted, or another typical bend would be to bend from the seventh to the top octave, because of course the seventh, just like when we were studying the bass, leads to the top root. So here's the seventh, bending to the top. So, in a typical bend, one of the first things I learned was like considered like the Jan Hammer bend, which is. So a good way to practice might be to just go. It's kind of a three rhythm. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll incorporate bends, like I'll bend into the seventh from the sixth, just for a different sound, like this. I'll lead up to it. Whereas the sixth itself is not necessarily a step I would use in a traditional blues scale, because that would sound like. But I would use it to bend. Here's the fourth going into the fifth. and even the second, which is not part of the basic scale that I laid out, but that bending into the third. So some of these little things just to keep it interesting. Of course, if you want to check out some of the basic fingerings for the blues scales, please visit my website and you'll see a number of the scales there with some recommended, suggested fingerings. Let's take a really close look at what's happening with the wheel. Okay, so we'll use the D blues scale. And we'll start on the fifth, the A. Now we're going to bend into the fifth by playing the fourth, the G, and bend to the... Now, my wheel is set right now to do a whole step, and that's a pretty common default on most synthesizers. It can be changed, and sometimes, as a matter of fact, on a wheel I'll use a minor third, but most of the time I'll use the whole step. If I want more, I can use my ribbon and do a bigger bend. So here's a couple things you could do. Play the fifth, play the fourth, grab the wheel and push it up to the fifth, and then bring it back. If you're using a joystick, it's just a matter of playing the fifth, playing the fourth, moving the joystick and bringing it back. The best bet is to do it in some kind of a rhythm. Up and back, fifth, up and back. So here's from the root. Up and back. Root, seventh, up and back. The other thing that I'll do with the wheel, and you can do this with the joystick as well, is when I hold a note, like a guitar, if a guitar player is holding a note, he's not just going to sit there and let the note hang still. There's always going to be some kind of vibrato. So that's what I'll do with the wheel. The common thing to do is to do that with a mod wheel, but if you use the mod wheel, you're always going to be limited to whatever the programmer back at Kurzweil or Korg or Roland or whatever decided for you. But I think it's much cooler, and it is much cooler, to be able to control the vibrato in real time with your hands. So I'll start to shake. You can control the width of it. So if you're looking for a very cool rock approach, it might be very wide. And sometimes it's cool to do it a little slower than you might think is the right way. A lot of times the pre-programmed vibrato is more like a little faster. But the cool rock vibrato, really, if you listen, is slower. So I really recommend not only practicing your bends, but also practice your vibrato. "95% of what I play is using this kind of close voice leading. And what that basically means is that, let's say I'm on a C chord, and I know I want to get to an A minor. I'll find the closest place to connect the two chords. So in this case, I only have to change one note to make the transition. So as I'm playing along, then if I want to get to an F chord, I simply move one note again. I'm always looking for this kind of voice leading when I'm playing to keep the music smooth. Even if I'm playing something with a melody, and the melody stretches out in the right hand, I'll usually find a chord that fits below it, like So notice that I'm playing the melody, often with my top finger, and positioning the chord underneath. Here's another example. So no matter how fancy or simple I get, this concept of keeping the chords in close proximity remains throughout. And I find in most music that really is the case. So I'd like to actually show you an exercise that will help you to get started, to put the chords together and find the chords in the different inversions. This exercise starts on a C chord. And what we're going to do is we're going to play a major chord, and then we're going to play a minor chord. First the C chord, and then it's going to go to the relative minor, which in the key of C, A minor is the relative minor. So I find the closest place to connect the chords. And in every case in this exercise, it'll just be a question of moving one note. So you play the C, then you go to the relative minor, which is A minor. And then we're going to go down a major third in the left hand from A to F and go to an F chord. So there's one move. And now we're going to go to the relative minor of F major, which is D minor, by moving down a minor third here. And then this is the cycles. Skipping it down the octave. And finally it brings you back to C. So it takes you through every one of the major and minor chords. And then after you do that, we'll start the whole exercise from the first position of C, the first inversion. So instead of C, E, G, started on E, G, C. So the second chord will be A minor, but now the first finger to move is the middle finger. We should also note that when you're on the C chord and you move to the A, the voice that's going to change in the right hand is the finger that's going to move to the actual A. So when we go to the F, the one that changes is the E to F. So there's all kinds of interesting little patterns within this pattern to get you going. Now, the next thing I'd like to point out is it's always important to be making music when you're playing any exercise. As a matter of fact, whenever you approach a musical instrument, you should approach it with the idea that, okay, whether it's a technical exercise, a harmonic exercise, now I'm going to make some music. So what can you do with this exercise? For instance, you can treat it like it's an accompaniment pattern. So how would you play an accompaniment pattern? There's a lot of different ways. If you're just playing a song in back of a singer, or like a Beatles song, or an Elton John song, or anything like that, you're going to want to approach it in a couple of different ways. Here's some examples. Okay, that's one way you could play an accompaniment pattern. But what about this? Or this. Or even this.